It's good to see everybody this morning. I apologize. I was delayed by my day job, but I'm glad to be here. I'm Mitch Mitchell, Chair of the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners, and it is 9:10 on June 20th, 2025. I'm going to call to order today's regular meeting of the board. We are meeting in person this morning with commissioner, staff, and members of the public in attendance. We do have a quorum with 5 commissioners present. Video of today's meeting is also being streamed live online. The link to watch today's meeting is on the Housing Commission website, www.sdhc.org. And to accommodate additional members of the public who may wish to participate in today's meeting, we have set up an overflow room down the hall. The live streaming video of today's meeting will be shown in the overflow room. Speaker slips are available in the overflow room for members who wish to provide public comment. Our staff will bring those speaker slips in here to me once they've been filled out at the appropriate time, and then they will escort speakers from the overflow room to make sure they're able to provide their comments to the board in person today. Members of the public here in the boardroom or in the overflow room who wish to provide comments to the board will need to complete a speaker slip. In the overflow room, submit your speaker slip to our communications staff in the room. In a moment, I will be proposing that agenda items 100, 101, 102, and 104 be placed on a consent agenda for today's meeting. Members of the public may provide comments about the items on the consent agenda by submitting a speaker slip for that item before the board considers the consent agenda. To speak in favor of any item on today's agenda, please submit a gold-colored speaker slip. To speak in opposition, please submit a pink speaker slip. And those who wish to address the board on a topic that is not on the agenda, please submit a white speaker slip. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to provide their comments about agenda items or non-agenda public comments. However, if a large number of people wish to provide non-agenda public comments or speak on a single agenda item, comments will be limited to 1 minute each. Collective testimony by those who support or oppose an item shall be limited to no more than 15 minutes total per side. When I call your name, please step to the podium, state your name for the record, and please begin making your comments. So, with that, non-agenda public comments, we have several, I believe, here. Yes, so there are several here. So, okay, so what we're going to do is, first off, we will take Joy Zenyatta. Is Joy here? Okay, good. I didn't see her. Okay, Joy. Good morning, Joy.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Joyce Zenyatta, District 3. I was going to look up a Shakespeare quote on my tablet, but I didn't have time this morning. But I think he said something about this. We live in interesting times. I'm amazed. I did not think I would live to experience what our world is going through now. But we're ready, and we'll meet it. And then our Mayor Gloria said this very recently in his newsletter: every opportunity to thrive, even in challenging times. And I think that's so true. So I have a couple items. First of all, I want to start with the San Diego Housing Commission strategic plan. And I want to tell you, I'm very proud of myself. I worked a big part of a Sunday, and I completed my public comments for the plan and turned them in to Deborah. And she sent me a nice email thanking me for doing that. So I hope you're eventually, or maybe you already have a copy of my comments, because I love doing them. And I mentioned you, Chair Mitchell. And so I'm very excited, and I hope the strategic plan is rolling forward. And perhaps President Jones will give us an update. Otherwise, I know it's in the process. So, President Jones, a question for you. I'm not clear where you're headed, if anywhere, with the Resilient program. I believe you said that at the Housing Authority meeting a while back, which I absolutely was blown away by, because I'm totally into resilience. So I hope that's part of your strategy to really meet the moment. And I'm with you on that. I think we are resilient. It's innate in our system, and we just have to claim it and live it. And these times, that's exactly what's required of us. If we're resilient, which we already are, just use it as a tool to meet the moment and thrive. So it's going to be a great day, and thank you very much for listening, and love to all.
Thank you, Joy. All right, next up we have Deborah Lynn, K2. Did I get that right? Yes, please come to the mic.
Mike will be right in front of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Deborah Carter. I am here as a Section 8 tenant. I don't know what your agenda was. I don't believe this is on it. But I am about to be homeless in 10 days because the San Diego Housing Commission has been holding up my move notice since the 6th of this month. I have gone all the way up the chain of command to Carrie Bell. I received no responses from any of the supervisors, all of whom I've been dealing with for 3 years. This is my third move on the San Diego Housing Commission. I do not know how you appoint people to office who don't answer public inquiries, who don't do their jobs. They hire people who are incompetent, and then they don't do anything to help the people that this San Diego Housing Commission is supposed to help. With no responses, I'm supposed to have my inspection on the 25th. I'm supposed to be moved by the 30th. That'll be 1 year in this residence, and my third move with the San Diego Housing Commission that I've had to fight tooth and nail every single time to get what I am entitled to. And it's outrageous. And I'm going to be here at every one of these meetings from this time on because nobody should have to go through this. Sleepless nights, stressing, having to live out on the street or they're in their car because they can't get any help. I waited 13 years to get into this program. I got into it in 2020. It has been a nightmare since I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. I know that staff will take care of handling some of your issues outside of that. So. Okay, that is it for our non-agenda public comment items. And as we move into the under the commissioner comments, I want to say one thing. Joyce Nyada, thank you very much for submitting your strategic plan comments. And I say that because these days there's so much happening outside the walls of this building, and I always remind everybody that we always have to remember that we're in this together. And I always take my hat off to the staff for what they do and the commitment. Mr. C once said to me, sometimes the work that we do, the people that we're helping will never know us by name or face, but we're doing the right thing because we're helping them. And I always remembered that day he told me that. And that's what we're trying to do. So thank you for submitting your comments. All right, with that, we will go to commissioner comments.
Can I ask Casey?
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here to present or discuss the current data for the Coordinated Shelter Intake Program. So in the month of May, we received 2,216 requests for shelter. We were only able to process 128, or 6%. The requests were 2,216, and we processed 128, or 6%. The decline was due to intakes being suspended at all single adult shelters and safe sleeping sites to accommodate the potential closure of Rosecrans. The only exception to that was that for 50 PD beds and safe sleeping beds, that was the only exception. So the number of referrals declined as soon as that announcement went out, and of course the number we were able to accommodate. The number one reason was no top male bunks, that was 33%. Number two was no female top bunks, which is 22%, and then number three reason was no male bottom bunks, which was 14% of all requests. Year to date, we have had 23,147 requests for shelter. We've completed 2,587 for 11% completion rate. When you look at the full year, the number one reason we can't accommodate shelter requests is because there's no male top bunk or no male bottom bunk. That's 54% of all the requests.
Okay. Casey. Casey, what was the female percentage?
For the month, it was 22%. Do you want the year?
Yep.
Okay, the year it was 25%.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Casey.
I actually do have one follow-up now that I think about it. So we saw our intake rate almost halved as compared to prior months. Do we have any sense of how long the impact of the Rosecrans closure will be in play?
We have, as of this morning, we have 60 residents left. So we anticipate by next week opening up the single shelter beds again.
And, sorry, remind me how many we started with?
150.
Okay, Mr. Cushman.
Thank you, Mitch. Not a housing commission program, but I was involved with a program with Supervisor Tara Lawson-Reamer in diversion. And I sent a copy of the final report to Lisa the other day for anybody that would like to see it. We raised something over $1 million out of philanthropy in this community with the idea of keeping people in their housing before they end up homeless on the street. Our year has passed. It ended up $1,500,000 program. At the end of the day, we helped 597 people, call it 600 people. We helped $700,000 was for rent, paying for their rent. The interesting thing is another $500,000 was security deposits. So it tells us that security deposits are what's really lacking in many, many cases. They may be employed, they may be able to pay their rent, but they don't have a big chunk of change, obviously, to go make a security deposit. So $500,000 was security deposit. At the end of the day, the most amazing statistic is 12 months later, 96% were still housed. That is the definition of a successful program. So, hippity hop, we're really excited, and it was a wonderful program, was done through RTFH. Instead of starting some new program, we simply blew up their program. They used to spend $300,000, and we added $1.2 million to their program. So we didn't reinvent the wheel, we didn't start a whole new level of government. We just blew up a program they already had.
I would like to remind Commissioner Cushman that this agency actually does administer a direct assistance program, and
this program.
No, but the same covers security deposits and other things. And for my entire time on this board, I would say that there's been a consensus here and with the San Diego City Council that we need more direct intervention, because data point after data point after data point says that that is our most humane, our most cost-effective. And that's great to hear that there was $1 million last year. Let me remind you that we nearly lost this program in its entirety because it was on the mayor's list of cuts the previous year. We have not been able to grow it. And so we have been in a defensive posture at the Housing Commission, advocating for not losing the direct assistance we have because it works. And if any other agency is stepping into that space, that's fantastic. But just for a reality check here, this is not new information. We've been begging for the state, the city, the county to put more direct resources, because as long as we are entirely dependent on HUD, we have all of our constraints that HUD has attached. If we can do direct prevention and diversion, we don't have those constraints and we know that it works better. But again, for my entire time here, this has been largely a defensive, please don't cut the few $100,000 that are going into this. And that's where we've been, unfortunately.
I think the good news is our program here is larger than this program. And Lisa's going to try to do a comparison of where our program is and where our numbers are. But you'll find out our program here is larger than
Can
this
we,
program.
can we count on you in future city and county budget years to help us advocate for expanding the program that we have existing in the city of San Diego that's been proven to
I
work for years?
raised over $1 million for this program, Ryan.
This one, ours?
No, the program I'm speaking of.
I know, I'm asking if you can commit to helping expand the Housing Commission's diversion and prevention program.
Lisa and I have had discussions about that, and
Because we've been facing
obviously,
cuts
I
in recent
believe in
years.
Diversion.
I know, it was on the chopping block last year, and I don't recall you suggesting that be put back.
What I'll interject
wasn't
here is
here.
that look, I agree with, first of all, the statistics on the diversion, on the program for the county, fantastic. 597 people, and let me go back to what I said earlier, 597 people who you may never meet are housed. And the fact that 96% of them are still housed is fantastic. Commissioner Klumpner is correct that last year there was a decision made by city staff to recommend reducing the program, and full wind down. And I will always remember that call with Lisa on that Friday with the city staff, and it's back in. I think Commissioner Klumpner and I have talked about this, and I think we would all agree that the more money we can get into that program, the better. That is, I think, what I wrote down in my notes when you first did the report was, clearly that's a barrier that we don't talk enough about and we should talk more about. How do we get people in? And it shouldn't be just about the deposit. Three words that may terrify a lot more people than we think are first and last. Right? So we just have to remember that. But again, leaning in and nice. So there is work to do. Lisa, were you going to make a comment? Or Commissioner Vasquez?
Yeah, just because I think this is an important issue, and although personal information is considered a logical fallacy, I will say that I recall when I was in law school and as the first generation attorney in my family and having to put myself through both undergrad and graduate school, rent was about $2,000 a month in Tierra Santa, and I had a $400 deposit, security deposit. There was none of this double, triple your security deposit. So it's no wonder that people are suffering. If me as a 20-something-year-old could barely come up with the $400 required for security deposit, then no wonder that people that have very limited residual income are having a difficult time. My sister, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist, also has donated many hours of her time before getting licensed to children who were at risk for being removed from their homes. And what the county and what agencies had discovered is that wraparound services, which is basically what we're talking about here, where people just, there's these 2 to 3 months that are incredibly crucial, whether it be because of a loss of job, or a family member gets ill, or just difficult times. There's this crucial period of time where you need these wraparound services to help them through this period of time. And so instead of removing the kids, in the agencies that she's worked for in the past would come in and provide these wraparound services. And so this is definitely, from an economic standpoint, it makes sense. From a humanities, from a human aspect, it makes sense. And so I encourage all of us. It's good to hear that, of course, these our board members, our commissioners, and of course the commission itself are in favor of wraparound services that will keep people in their housing, which means that for those children, they're staying in their schools, and as adults, we're able to protect the kids from unnecessary stresses by providing this additional help. So however I can be of assistance, I will absolutely help and commit to you, Ryan, that I will absolutely go to the Housing Commission and ask for a housing authority and advocate for it, because as someone who was first generation and paycheck to paycheck, not having a security deposit that's twice what my rent is would have broken me during that time. So thank you for bringing that up.
I very much appreciate that. And I mean, I've never said this before, but, as somebody who has slept in my car for weeks and lived in hotels, cheap hotels, because I did not have a security deposit. And so I was saving up, 2 months with a college degree, saving up 2 months to be able to afford to sign a lease, that I could afford the rent. The fact that the only form of existence, or the only form of assistance that exists for people in that situation is these small one-off local programs that are always on the verge of disappearing entirely. And I know that I'm coming in hot this morning. I mean, it is incredibly depressing for 5 years to watch the discussion around prevention and diversion go from, this is something that we should probably try, this is something that is working, to let's see if we can keep this going for one more year at a time in a manner that serves, less than 10% of the people who need it. That is an incredibly sad and frustrating thing, and I'm glad that there's private philanthropy. We live in the richest country in the world, in one of the richest cities in this country, and I don't know what to make of the fact that every city I've been to around the world seems to do a better job of keeping people from sleeping on their streets than we do. So whatever we're doing, before we pat ourselves on the back, we are not doing nearly enough, because those programs exhaust their resources almost immediately. And we can't even provide a shelter bed for 95% of people who are showing up right now. So, thanks.
No problem. I will end commissioner comments with go back to what I said to Joy. Again, things are going to get tougher, and I think Commissioner Klumner, you're right. It's sad now. It's going to get a lot sad. We're going to have a lot more sorrow with what's happening in the budget discussions in Washington, D.C. And we are at a point, we've been at a point for a while, and I know that Mr. C and I have talked about this. Sometimes it's about ruthless prioritization. And we have to figure out what is the most significant priorities what are the most significant priorities we have. I do think this diversion, the diversion program, and first and last month's rent, and Commissioner Vasquez, you were talking about when you were in your 20s. I think no one should be fooled. When I was in my 20s, I had the same struggle. I wasn't. I had a college degree. When the first and last was a struggle, and rent was far cheaper back then. So I was telling a story the other day about imagine that you used to be able to rent a 2-bedroom, 2-bath place in Pacific Beach for $800 a month. That is no longer the case, and first and last is a tough hill to climb. And so we are going to be focused in our strategic plan and our discussions about the road forward of how we truly lean in and help the most people where we can. And that's going to take ruthless prioritization. Commissioner Klumner is right. I think that as a state and as a city and as a county, we actually have to be better about ruthless prioritization and trying to help the people, because there are a number of people who are going to be impacted in the coming months. And I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of tears at this meeting, because when the final decisions are made in Washington, D.C., Mr. C, as I said, there are a lot of people that we want to help and that we help. They will never know us. There's a lot of impact on faces that we have not seen today. That's coming, and we have to remain focused together on helping push for the best outcomes possible. So, okay. Seeing no further commissioner comments, I will then move on to President and CEO report. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Well, this seems timely. Good morning, Commissioners. I'll make a few comments during my comments. I just have a few updates to share with you this morning. Speaking to sort of challenging times, last week, the day after the Housing Authority approved our budget, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Secretary Scott Turner testified to a U.S. Senate subcommittee about the proposed federal budget for HUD for the next federal fiscal year. The administration's budget proposal includes a request to cut funding for and completely reshape the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. However, as I've shared with our staff, the administration's proposed budget is typically a messaging document that is not adopted exactly as proposed. Congress makes significant changes in the legislative process, and the current administration's proposal seems extremely unlikely to be passed in its current form. During the hearing last week, Senate subcommittee members from both parties shared concerns about the administration's proposed budget. The subcommittee chair, Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, a Republican from Mississippi, also noted that Congress does not have a top-line discretionary budget agreement in place. She said the House and Senate likely will produce budget bills with different spending levels that will need to be reconciled. As I informed the Housing Authority during questions at their meeting last week, we're hearing that as federal appropriators look at how to build the fiscal year 2026 federal budget, they're building it on the foundation of what the current budget looks like. That is so far good news. They are not building it based on the administration's budget proposal or skinny budget. So we're feeling more optimistic than we were, but there's a long way to go between now and October. Frankly, another continuing resolution instead of a federal budget is also still a very likely possibility. We're working with our consultant in Washington to determine which appropriators we should be connecting with to advocate for federal funding, and we continue to communicate with San Diego's congressional representatives and work with national industry organizations to monitor federal funding proposals and activities, but also to advocate for appropriate funding levels. And when we talk about what you discussed around prioritization and even ruthless prioritization, we really have to bear two things in mind. One are the people behind the numbers, the people we serve every day, and two, frankly, what our return on investment looks like. And that ROI can be in dollars or it can be in humanitarian impacts. So diversion is a critical source to keep people in their housing. Prevention, and get them rehoused quickly. Prevention is a critical source to keep people in their housing. And they are, including the voucher program, the most cost-effective resources we have at our disposal. So when we think about ruthless prioritization, even if the voucher program, which I do not think is going to end and be transferred to the states, I think it's highly unlikely. I think it will remain under the Department of Housing and Urban Development, but it may look different. How they subsidize vouchers may look different. How we think about how we support people may look different. The positives that we have in front of us is that we know how to do this. The Housing Instability Prevention Program is incredibly effective for a lot of folks because a number around 40 to 50% are elderly or disabled. This is really a long-term resource that right now is a 24-month program. But the cost is less than a voucher. It costs less than a voucher to provide people that shallow subsidy of $250, $500, or $750 a month. We're even going to another tier of $1,000 a month. It's still less than what it costs from a voucher standpoint. It's also a hell of a lot less than a shelter bed. Shelter beds are critically important. We know how many people need them. We have to be able to respond to people quickly, but working at a state and federal level to create programs that are more cost efficient and that stretch the dollars a little further. And frankly, what we can do from an MTW perspective is all going to be important. When we think about resiliency that Joyce and Yada mentioned earlier, we are going to have to look at how we stretch our dollars further. That is going to require difficult decisions. But we have been operating diversion programs since 2017, Jeff? Maybe 2017. We've been operating diversion programs and prevention programs. We've been operating the Housing Instability Prevention Program for 3 years. We have the data to know what works and know how to fit the resource to the population's unique needs, because different populations are going to need different things. Career-able folks are going to need different things. College students are going to need different things than seniors or folks on disabilities have. These challenges are real. They're going to become more real when we actually have a final October budget. But I strongly believe we have the data, the innovative minds, and the caring hearts among this board, among our housing authority, and among our staff to make those ruthless but thoughtful and considerate decisions. So I thank you for this conversation. It was a tough conversation to have. It couldn't have been a better time to have it as we're talking about what the future looks like for a budget. And following that, I'm going to jump back into my slides. We also previously shared with you about challenges, the premature end of federal funding for the Emergency Housing Voucher Program. That affects more than 460 families that we are assisting with these vouchers. Last month, we received a renewal notice with estimated remaining federal funding amounts for housing assistance payments for emergency housing vouchers. Based on those amounts, we estimate this funding is sufficient to cover the average housing assistance payments for emergency housing vouchers until fall of 2026. So that gives us about a year to figure things out. There are no replacement funds or vouchers to continue to assist these families after those funds are expended. To try to mitigate the negative effects the end of funding will have on these families, we have asked HUD for several regulatory waivers. A few of the waivers we have requested are shown on this slide. If approved, these waivers would allow us to transfer emergency housing voucher families to alternative housing options if applicable and available. The challenge with that is as we get those waivers and we have an opportunity to transfer folks, that means that that voucher that might be bringing someone out of shelter, out of safe sleeping, off the streets, into housing, would be keeping an emergency housing voucher family who had previously been in that position housed instead. That means basically less resources. When we think of new permanent supportive housing coming online, when we think of permanent supportive housing or voucher programs when they turn over, those resources are not going to be available to move people through the system as quickly. That said, emergency housing voucher households are some of the most vulnerable that we serve. They have one of the highest average cost per household in rental subsidy, almost $2,200 a month, compared to our average rental subsidy cost of about $1,490. That just shows the level of need and the number of household members we are seeing in these households. They will not be able to just pay their rent in a year. Without emergency housing vouchers or some other type of alternative housing options, these families are likely to become homeless again when their assistance ends. We are doing everything we can to prevent that, and we sent those waivers to HUD on May 29th. We're awaiting that decision. We're also working on innovative ways to move folks within programs to look at potential extension of funding through philanthropic and other sources, as well as having conversations at a state level. Last week, we also welcomed HUD's regional administrator to our offices. William Spencer is the regional 9 administrator overseeing HUD programs in California, Arizona, Nevada, and Hawaii. He and members of his staff met with our Deputy CEO, Jeff Davis, and several members of our leadership team here at our offices. We also provided a tour of our Hotel Churchill property for Mr. Spencer. We were able to share details about our moving to work status and a variety of our programs with him during these meetings, and we are following up to provide more information he requested about a few priorities we discussed with him. The regional administrator, Spencer, also joined us last week for the grand opening of our Presidio Palms property. Chair Mitchell and Commissioner Vasquez and Cushman were also able to participate in this special commemoration, along with Mayor Gloria, Council President LaCava, and Councilmember Ela Rivera. Thank you to our entire board for your leadership, advocacy, and engagement in the process for acquiring and renovating Presidio Palms. That was a particularly challenging real estate process, and the board's support and help really made a difference in that process. This is a former extended stay hotel property that we bought and converted into 161 affordable rental apartments with supportive services for people who have previously experienced homelessness. Presidio Palms is possible because of extensive collaboration among all levels of government and community organization. HUD funds the 161 housing vouchers we committed to help residents pay their rent. The state awarded $35 million in home key funds towards this project. The city and county each provided $17.8 million in capital funds, and the county committed $8.3 million towards supportive services to make sure that people can thrive in their new homes. Telecare is providing supportive services through a contract with the county, and the Regional Task Force on Homelessness also provided $1.1 million in gap funding. We own and manage this property, including Presidio Palms. The state's Home Key program has awarded more than $105 million to the Housing Commission collaborations to create more than 600 affordable housing units with supportive services to address homelessness. That is a wonderful thing to commemorate and celebrate. These times are hard, but it's important to celebrate what the city, the commission, the RTFH, the county can do when we come together. I'll also note that it only took about 7 months from the start of the rehabilitation construction to start the move-ins to this property. So fantastic job to the development team and real estate team to make that happen, as well as the voucher team. It is a long process to get people into housing quickly when you think of the services, the coordinated entry system, the coordinated entry system, the services, the voucher, then property management. Getting people into that housing quickly is an incredibly important and challenging task. I want to take a moment to, acknowledge our staff across all departments. See, I'm ahead of you, Scott. Our staff across all departments who did a great job working together to make this possible to provide these rental homes for our unhoused neighbors. Finally, on Monday of this week, additional philanthropic funds were announced to continue to expand the Seniors Safe at Home program. This program launched in 2023 with an initial $500,000 investment from the Lucky Duck Foundation. The new announcement is that the Rancho Santa Fe Foundation will provide $100,000 to support the program. The Lucky Duck Foundation will match that amount and commit another $500,000. That is a total of $700,000 for this program. Seniors Safe at Home helps to prevent homelessness among seniors. The program helps pay rent and other housing-related costs for seniors aged 55 and older with low income, experiencing a housing crisis, and at risk of homelessness. About 40 households are actively enrolled now, and the additional funding will support expanding to assist additional seniors. Serving Seniors provides case management and support for participating seniors, and the Housing Commission administers the assistance payments that program provides. Senior Safe at Home is modeled after the Housing Instability Prevention Program, which we spoke of earlier, which the city funds to assist families who also have low income, are experiencing a housing crisis, and are at risk of homelessness. That program supports about 300 households annually currently. We operate the Housing Stability Prevention Program on behalf of the city. And that concludes my presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, next up is the approval of the minutes for May 9th, 2025, of the regular meeting of the board. We do not have any speaker slips that have been submitted on the minutes. So, commissioners, are there any changes to the minutes, or can I entertain a motion and a second? Motion by Commissioner Jackson. Second. By Commissioner Klumpner. Any further comments? Seeing no changes. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No abstentions. The motion carries unanimously. And we will now move on to the consent agenda. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, I'm recommending putting item 100, 101, 102, and 104 on the consent agenda. We do have 2 speaker slips on 2 of the items, so we'll go ahead and take care of that right now. On item 102, Joyce Sunyata, and on item 104, Joyce Sunyata. So, Joy, I'm just going to have you stay at the mic.
Have that. First of all, Chair, I'll skip. I've worked on it, but I'll skip 102. Now, if you'll cut me some slack and let me go off point briefly, I do want to speak on 104. Great, robust discussion on the diversion. Commissioner Cushman, you used the magic word, philanthropy. Please help us, Commissioner Cushman, to go there. We need to go there more. And I know you know stuff, and you know people. So please take us there. City Council, Housing Commission, and you're good, Vice Chair. Thank you. You can be hot at the meetings. It's okay. We love all sides of you. Okay. Chair Mitchell, I'm upset about 104. This is a TEFRA item. I really didn't like it when they gave you the authority to take it out of Housing Authority meetings and bring it into you. But I've really fallen in love with it. It works. I don't want us to not have a presentation on this item today. Can we have a mini presentation? Now, if it's legally okay to do this, and I'm not going to resist, but as a public, I really honor and respect TEFRA hearings. I think they're critical, powerful, important, and the public is really, really encouraged to participate. So that's my request. If I have time, please give me a minute maybe. Let's see, this is, hope I get this right now. This is the one with Seabreeze. Am I correct, Chair? You are correct. Okay. I was talking with a gentleman here, a wonderful gentleman, $7,700,000 increase in 1 year. That scares me. Construction costs, I don't get it. District 4, I love District 4. We have Foster the Third there. Let's see. Oh, I've got so much to say on this, but I don't want to take up your time. 680,000 approximately per unit, I believe. That's decent these days. Hey, this is a new thing you're adding, and I love this. I don't remember you having it before. District 4 has 12% of the total affordable housing units citywide. So I did some math, and I think I'll be talking with you on another item. I'll save that for another item, but I did some math on that distribution for each district. So if you don't mind, you're so wonderful, Chair. Can you say whether we can have a little hearing or not on the TEFRA item?
Yeah, what I will commit to is we discussed this, Lisa and Jeff. I think this is on twice. We had some concerns about the cost. It's an older building, so it was on 2 previous agendas. And I believe at the end of one of the agendas, we hadn't seen you in a while, and I was like, "Hey, has anybody seen Joy?" And so I think that may be why you were not here for either of the 2. We chose, because we've had 2 discussions about it previously and looked at the cost, we chose to put on the consent agenda. But if there are questions, and we can revisit this for next month, but I think ultimately that's why we put it on consent.
Okay. So, and I'm sure our wonderful attorney, thank you for your work. It's A-okay to do this.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Chuck, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, you should open a public meeting and then ask if there are any people to testify on it. If not, close that meeting for the purposes of the TEFRA hearing.
Okay, so we could do that.
Yes.
Okay. Joy, go ahead.
If I could just make a comment for clarity here. So the reason why these hearings are not held at both the Housing Authority and here was to shorten the development timeline process. This was a change we made a while ago so that we can get housing online faster and cheaper than having duplicative hearings. And the only reason that we're not having a full presentation on the item discussed today is because we've already seen the full presentation, and this is just a small change that's occurring that we're approving. So we've all seen the whole show in previous meetings, which is why we decided we didn't need to see it all again. But I think your point and the public's point about the importance of these hearings is well understood and appreciated by all of us. So, yes. No, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we're good. Okay. All right, so that is, those are the speaker slips for the consent agenda. Seeing that there are no other ones, this concludes the public comment period for these items. Commissioners, or any additional comments on the consent agenda? If not, I will entertain a motion in a second. Motion by Commissioner Oak.
So moved by.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Vasquez, second by Commissioner Jackson. All right, any further comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? No abstentions. The motion carries unanimously. So we will move on next to item 103, which is the approval of a non-competitive sole source agreement between the San Diego Housing Commission and the Downtown San Diego Partnership to operate the Homelessness Response Center at 330 Park Boulevard. And Casey, we will take public comments after the staff presentation. Before the staff presentation, our General Counsel Chuck Christensen has a statement to provide about this project.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Cushman is the board member of the San Diego Partnership and is on other committees, including the Homeless Committee, as I understand it. I have looked at this issue. There is no legal conflict from Commissioner Cushman participating in the discussion, nor in voting on this matter, nor for being counted for the purposes of a quorum under the provisions of Government Code Section 87103. There is no financial interest under the provisions of Government Section 1091.5A, 7, 8, and 9. This is a non-interest. And for those reasons, Commissioner Cushman's able to vote and participate.
Thank you very much.
And one last thing, I'd like that incorporated into the minutes, please.
All right. Now, with that being said, presenting today's presentation will be Vice President Casey Snell and Senior Homeless Programs Analyst Melissa Colts. So, Casey and Melissa, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Commissioners. The City of San Diego acquired the property where the Homelessness Response Center is currently located in 2018. In November 2018, the city entered a memorandum of understanding with SDHC to administer the operation of the Housing Navigation Center, later operated as the Homelessness Response Center. In February 2024, the city released a request for proposals for the disposition and development of the property with the intent of developing affordable housing. The city has identified office space at the San Diego Central Library as an alternative location to maintain operations of the Homelessness Response Center. The proposed actions will allow SDHC to enter into a non-competitive agreement with Downtown San Diego Partnership to operate the HRC program at the new program site for a one-year term with 4-year options for renewal. At its new location at the Central Library, the HRC program will provide one-time or short-term system navigation services. The aim of these services is to support individuals experiencing or at risk of homelessness through all stages on their pathway toward housing stability. To ensure efficient utilization and leveraging of existing system resources, HRC program staff will coordinate with other service providers and partners in the community who may already be serving or engaged with the same individuals and families that access the HRC. The program will be adding resources to offer short-term diversion financial assistance targeting barriers to housing. The HRC program will align with Housing First principles, including low barriers to program enrollment and operations. Services offered at the HRC program will include assistance with accessing mainstream benefits and obtaining personal identification documents to help the individual strengthen their support network of resources. HRC staff will provide referrals to shelter through the Coordinated Shelter Intake Program, as well as referrals to other temporary lodging resources within the community.
To support the individual on their pathway to housing, the HRC will provide assistance with completing and obtaining documents for housing applications. Program staff will assist with completing the paperwork for supportive and subsidized housing, engage in advocacy and mediation efforts with potential landlords to secure new housing, assist in locating permanent or other longer-term housing interventions, determine diversion opportunities, and provide short-term diversion financial assistance. Diversion financial assistance includes rental application fees, security deposits, first and last month's rent, utility deposits, utility or rent debt, and other costs necessary to obtain housing. 6. The Downtown San Diego Partnership has been serving the downtown San Diego area since 1993 through advocacy, public services, and community investment. The organization's most well-known program is Downtown Partnership Clean and Safe. A core service of the Clean and Safe program is the Unhoused Care Team. The team provides outreach services, assists unsheltered individuals through connections to community resources such as their family reunification program, diversion, and shelter opportunities. SDHC worked with Downtown San Diego Partnership through the contract administration of the Family Reunification Program from fiscal years 2018 through 2023. Downtown San Diego Partnership will leverage its current public service programs, including its operation of the city's Safe Sleeping Program, to enhance service delivery at the new HRC location. A non-competitive process under Procurement Policy 9.1 will be utilized to procure Downtown San Diego Partnership as the program operator. A non-competitive procurement process is appropriate for this project due to the expedited timeframe needed to quickly procure a new program operator at the HRC. The current provider notified SDHC on April 28th of their intent to not continue as the lead service provider at the HRC after their contract ends on June 30th, 2025. As outlined on this slide, funding for the initial operating term totals $483,276. The funding source for the fiscal year 26 term is anticipated to be the City General Fund. Option years will be exercised contingent upon the availability of funding from the City of San Diego for that purpose. We recommend the board take the actions detailed on this slide and what's detailed in the staff report. That concludes our presentation, and we have invited Josh Coyne with the Downtown San Diego Partnership to join us to answer your questions.
Okay. You can get that, Melissa. I mean, I know you're a little nervous, but I mean, throwing stuff at your first time presenting in front of us is a little odd. All right, we have one speaker slip on this item. Joy, it's good to see you again today. No, I won't, Joy. You don't have to worry.
Okay, thank you so much. He's wonderful. He's helping me get over this hump of learning to use this. Okay, I am so excited about this. This is a good move. And of course, you know, that building, I know about that building from the beginning. We're going to have some affordable housing there. So I love the Central Library. I used to live there at the old one to do my work, and I go there all the time now. I love our new one, so it's the right place. We welcome everybody there. It's one of the rare places where just everybody, our arms are open to everybody at Central Library. So thank you, Downtown Partnership. I was a little concerned that there was a statement that the Downtown San Diego Partnership will leverage its current public service program. So I hope that's doable for them and that they can fit it in, because I think it's going to be really solid. And the only other question I had real quick, it's coming for the funds, 483,000 about, are coming from the city's general funds. And you know, we're not there yet, right? With the budget still hasn't been fully approved. So I guess that's what you mean by anticipated, because I think the funds are already in the budget. But it's just the fact that you're using those words because we're not officially at the end of June and starting the fiscal year, because I want to be reassured that the 483,000 is really already budgeted. Sure. Okay?
Absolutely.
Love to all. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think that you heard Commissioner Klum. I think we all understand that no one's budget is set yet until the feds have made their final decisions, and the impacts that they are felt by the county and the cities. There may require adjustments, but as Commissioner Klumner said, hopefully, and as I've said, ruthless prioritization, hopefully this is a priority program that still remains in the general fund. So that is the only public comment speaker slip we had for this item. So commissioners, if there are any comments, questions?
I have a few questions. So as we were going back through the history, because this program has really evolved, and I feel like every maybe 3-4 years, it's kind of like unrecognizable from how it had originated previously. So a couple questions. One, I know that we've had to do this via sole source previously. How many times have we run a competitive process for the contract?
The first solicitation was competitive in 2018.
Okay. And then this one, obviously, we have a time frame problem is the real issue. But we expect this to continue operating into the future, right? This is not something we're expecting to be winding down. Mm-hmm. So I guess since this has become a fixture of the homeless service ecosystem, I would just sort of ask that we look for the next opportunity to do a competitive process, just partly because it's kind of an anomalous service, and I think it just more information from all of us on sort of what's being proposed programmatically and cost wise. I think that would be good. I have a few questions, maybe for Josh. Maybe you're not needed to answer them, though. So the partnership historically has just dealt with downtown San Diego. So, but this service, this is intended for citywide residents experiencing homelessness, right? Do we have any sense of how many people are making it to that site from downtown versus from outside of downtown?
We don't know. We don't track. I mean, it is a walk-in center, so the assumption is that folks are coming probably from the downtown area or neighboring area.
And then do we have I'm sure that we have like number of people that we've served data for it. Has there been any change since the enforcement approach over the last year and a half has changed downtown?
No, it's been
Because
pretty
what I'm wondering is, you point out, one would assume that most of the people coming in are downtown. And we've also seen the number of homeless downtown drop quite significantly. So I'm curious whether this is serving the same number of people, the same composition of people, or whether this is kind of a changing, whether the demand around this program is changing.
So we have seen spikes over time. I mean, we're pretty consistent though in serving about the lowest number I see here is 900 per month, but on average it's about 1,400 people walk through the doors for specific services each month.
Got it. And then I guess my last question here is, one of the main things that they do is make referrals. I mean, we're looking at our referral completions being 6%. Can you elaborate more on what is occurring at this service when shelter beds are not available? Because I think just at the percentages we're looking at, we should just assume shelter beds are not available if you are a person walking in looking for support. So what other kind of support are they getting?
So the number one service outside of seeking shelter is actually housing navigation support, which is what the intent of the site is. So that would be accessing, really checking on status of where they're at in the CES process, the coordinated entry system. But a lot of it is just help getting documents, which supports so when their name does come up, or if they are able to identify housing on their own, that they're ready to take it. So that, I would say, is the biggest service outside of shelter referrals.
Thank you, and I do think that is one of the most important services that we can provide, and we've seen lots of data that most people who exit homelessness into permanent housing are doing so without a voucher, or oftentimes any kind of assistance from us other than that navigation support. So I think that's incredibly valuable. So thank you for answering those questions. And I would just also kind of note that as this continues to evolve, I would hope that facility is able to serve the full city of San Diego in some capacity, even though there's certainly logistical problems with that. And I think in the perfect world that I will delay dreaming about too much, there would be more resources like this elsewhere in the city. I think my underlying concerns are not anything related to this program or the service or the downtown partnership. It is more the fact that we have these things so concentrated in a single neighborhood at the same time that we're seeing our homeless residents locating away from that neighborhood. So that is the conundrum that I worry about a bit. That on the one hand we're telling people you got to get out of downtown San Diego, go anywhere else, and then on the other hand we're telling them the only place you can come to get housing navigation is to trek back downtown for those meetings. That seems like a not ideal way to have this set up, and certainly we're like 4 iterations from how the concept started, which I always had concerns about this, to be honest. And I really appreciate how much the staff and the various partners we've had have made this program something that is working well, because I think I'm more optimistic about it now than I was back when this all started. But those are my concerns in 2025, is that the environment that this is operating in is very, very different than it was 6 years ago. Thank you.
If I could just, so I really get your point there, and I think it might be worth bringing back, just as an informational update, the whole host of services that the HRC program involves, because we are contracting with Downtown Partnership for a component of that, but there's a lot of work that SDHC staff still do themselves: coordinated intake, system navigation, which is basically watching how people are moving through the system and identifying where they are not moving, and in getting involved, either getting housing navigators connected to them through this new partnership, reaching out to the providers that they maybe have been referred to but haven't been able to reach them, addressing issues between maybe a voucher program and a property manager, pulling in our LEAP program for security deposits. Frankly, when I think of sort of the system navigation that's happening, as well as the direct housing navigation, which is client-based, that system navigation has really become for our system like air traffic control. And that is something that happens across our city anywhere someone is touching our system, because it's essentially virtual, being operated by our staff. So I think it would be good to bring back and give an update on what we're doing there. Also, it's important to remember that we have our Housing First San Diego hotline that is operated 24 hours a day by 211, which is another way folks can access it. They also can access the HRC through a phone number and through an email address. So there's, which is, frankly, we're constantly overwhelmed by. Casey's going, well, yeah, kind of, sort of. Frankly, our Housing First San Diego hotline that goes to 211, because that's 24 hours a day, is one of the best ways to get a hold of us. But we brought a component of this program forward. We should really probably come back maybe in September and bring sort of like a whole universe of what this program is doing, because the HRC funds that come from the city not only fund what Downtown Partnership is going to be doing, but fund the work that the commission staff are doing as well.
I appreciate that explanation, and I love the analogy of air traffic control. That is the sense that I get from a distance. I would encourage us to look for more data about where the flights are taking off from, because we have a lot more information about where they're landing or failing to land than we do about what our starting point is. And given that this was, and to some extent is still, like a geographically oriented program, like I think we got to have a little bit better information about where our residents seeking assistance are making their way from, and what assistance they're needing based on that.
I'm happy to share that Josh, Natalie, Melissa, and myself are already having conversations with 211, actually, to kind of try to figure out how we maximize all the resources that are available, and maybe tap into some of like CIE to track referrals and where they're coming from, all that other basic data.
CIE being Community Information
Yes,
Exchange.
sorry, yes.
Also, Casey has sitting on my desk an ask for an updated sort of prevention and diversion report that was conducted through 211 a number of years ago that needs to be updated. It provides incredibly valuable data on who, when, how, what they look like, what that's coming from. So I'm going to be going around to some of our funders and asking them for some help in pulling this report together. So that would answer a lot of that. I'm happy to share the current report, which is a few years old, with the board. I will also share the diversion report that you sent to me, Commissioner Cushman from RTFH, so I'll share that with the board afterwards.
I'll just add on onto this. I think it was a few years ago we had a conversation about the Navigation Center, and I had requested more data. I think one of the things that we have to do better as a city and as an organization is, it ties in with what Vice Chair Connor said, is knowing where the planes are coming from. But I think specifically to this list for Casey and Melissa, what I was asking originally a few years ago was, when people are asking for, help with security deposits, or they're asking for, or they're saying, hey, I'm going to be evicted, and what I wanted to know more of is, what's the sweet spot? Are we seeing more people being evicted because they're paying $1,100 a month now and it's going up to $1,200 or $1,300? And I have yet to see that information, because I think that we have to establish a baseline of how are we doing against that baseline. So if more people are coming into the center and saying, hey, listen, I need help with my security deposit. Well, what's the average request for that? Is it I need $800 first and last? Is it $1,200 I need first and last? I, to this day, don't have any of that information, but I think that hopefully you guys can provide that, because I think it's important. And even on utility deposits, hopefully you're working with SDG&E to make sure that you have direct access. If you have a problem with that, I may know someone inside that can help you with that, because I don't want there to be any delays there. But I think there's a lot more information that we need to get as a board, so we know where we are today, what we're seeing, because as we mentioned early in the meeting, we expect that the trajectory of this conversation to increase, and we need to know how fast it's moving and what we need to do to respond. So, and I'll just end with this. When we were buying the Navigation Center years ago, the late Peter Seidler and I and Dan Shea were having this conversation. We all disagreed with putting the Navigation Center downtown. We all disagreed because we think that the population is spread out, and we were actually more in favor of mobile navigation centers, going to where the population hotspots are, because we thought that was a much better idea. And at the time, the previous administration had some RVs that were sitting in a parking lot unused, and we thought was great. Give those to the Housing Commission, let them use them, and it never went anywhere. I still believe, and I agree with what Vice Chair Clemens is saying, as you're moving the population out from downtown, they're going somewhere else. We've always known there's a large population over in the Midway area and sports arena. We know that there's a Mr. C used to talk to me about the population that was out off the 8 in the eastern portions of the city. And I just think that at some point, it's great that we have a site at the downtown library, but if you have more people that are locating and being moved outward, then figuring out how you directly connect with them is really important. And so it's something we have to figure out.
I just wanted, I really appreciate you bringing that up. And I think we all kind of had concerns about the navigation center. I've said before, it's, I think probably the only vote I kind of regret, because I just did not think it was a good idea to have it so geographically locked into that one location. And so in terms of the general vision you're expressing, I'm 100% on board. I think, my biggest concerns around these services is basically how widely they actually are available, because, my question is kind of how feasible is it for somebody in Midway or Mission Valley or, Mira Mesa to get there.
Especially seniors. And I think that's where where our biggest concern originally was, is that you're just acting like seniors who need the services can just somehow magically get there as often as they need to. So just something to keep in mind. So Melissa, we'll be emailing you this at least 3 or 4 times a week, so you should probably prepare for that. All right. Any further comments, questions? Okay, seeing none on that item, I will entertain a motion and a second for approval.
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair Klempner. Second by Commissioner Vasquez. All right, no further comments. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. No, any opposed?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate legal counsel's advice and counsel, but in abundance of caution, I will be recorded as abstaining.
Abstain. I figured it would be an abstention. Okay, fine. So we will have 3 commissioners. I'm sure Commissioner Jackson's going to add on, but we'll have 3 in favor and 1 abstention, and we'll wait for Commissioner Jackson. Okay. Next up is item 105, and this is the loan recommendation for the grant at Mission Trails. We will take public comment after the presentation, and Multifamily Housing Finance, VP of Multifamily Housing Finance, Jennifer Kruder. Good to see you. All right. And bless you. And Director of Multifamily Loan Underwriting and Special Assets, Michelle Muniz, will be presenting this item, and the floor is yours.
All right. Good morning, Chair Mitchell and Commissioners. The item before you today is a request to approve a proposed residual receipt loan in an amount not to exceed $2.2 million for the acquisition and construction of Grant and Mission Trails. Grant and Mission Trails is the proposed new construction of a 48-unit development, which is made up of 47 affordable units and 1 unrestricted manager unit, located, I just lost my train of thought, which is in the Navajo neighborhood of San Diego. Got back on track. The project is located at 5945 Mission Gorge Road in Council District 7. The proposed project's 47 affordable units will be comprised of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments for individuals and families with income levels ranging from 30 to 60% of area median income, which equates to $39,700 per year to $99,240 per year for 2 to 4 person households. The project has been awarded Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing, or VASH, project-based vouchers. 12 units will be set aside for VASH-eligible veterans experiencing homelessness. The proposed development will be a 7-story building. Site amenities include a community room, laundry facilities, a picnic area, and more. The developer, CRP Affordable Housing and Community Development, is a subsidiary of Castellan Holdings LLC, an experienced for-profit development firm established in 2008.
CRP Affordable owns, operates, and manages over 2,500 affordable housing units. With respect to the proposed development, the Housing Commission awarded a preliminary loan of up to $2.2 million and 12 VASH vouchers to the fiscal year 2024 Notice of Funding Availability. Services for the VASH tenants will be provided by the VA. They will work with townspeople, as townspeople will be a secondary PSH service provider. All other residents will have access to utilize services through Pacific Southwest Community Development Corporation. Oops. This slide shows a site map of the development and the proximity to transit, schools, and grocery stores. The site is located 250 feet from the closest bus stop and just over half a mile from the closest grocery store, while the closest school is just under a mile away. The total development cost of the project will be $42.2 million, which equates to a per unit cost of approximately $878,000. The developer is using multiple funding sources, including a permanent loan, a proposed loan from the Housing Commission, and loans from the City of San Diego and County, as well as federal and state tax credits. The Housing Commission loan in the amount of $2.2 million accounts for approximately 5% across all funding sources. As mentioned, the per unit cost is $878,000, which can be attributed to the following items: a larger concentration of 3-bedroom units, federal prevailing wage requirements, and the site itself. The site is located on a floodplain, which requires additional structural improvements, as well as soil stabilization and general construction needs. In addition to where the site is located, the shape of the site is irregular, which causes additional framing, plumbing, and electrical needs. Other reasons that contribute to higher cost per unit include an emphasis on energy efficient needs, volatility in the insurance market, and uncertain interest rates. Units were restricted at 30 to 60% of area median income for 55 years. Rents will range from $993 to $2,481 per month for the 1 through 3 bedroom apartments. Should these actions be approved today, the developer will close on construction financing and begin construction next month. The project is anticipated to complete construction in June 2027. Here's an architect's rendering of the site. Staff recommends that the board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. This concludes the presentation. A representative from the developer and I are available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for your time. Yeah, I'm Garrett Bascom. I'm with the developer CRP Affordable Housing and Community Development. We're very excited about this project. I really don't want to take too much time, but just want to say I'm here to answer any questions if you want. I know the cost per unit is high. I wanted to mention that, but you covered most of the things I was going to talk about, so I'm not sure what I'll say. There's one other thing. Originally, we wanted to have more units because the efficiency of scale is there, but due to the floodplain, we also had to cut down. We wanted to do 8 stories originally, so that took out, I think, 8 units, and then we also had to cut back 10 feet from Mission Gorge because of various setbacks, and that lopped off another 8 units, so that didn't help at all. But yeah, the shape of the site is a nightmare to deal with, and the flood zone.
In the picture, it doesn't look bad. When it said in the presentation, well, for how they phrased it, it was a difficult shape, and I'm like, it looks like a normal building.
If you look at it from a floor plan perspective, it's just a triangle, and it's like not even a straight triangle, and so it's just one thing after the next. But because of that, we have to do basically normally when you do a slab on grade. We had to raise the finished floor 6 feet out of the floodplain. So even the ground floor is like a structural podium with geopiers going down. So it's just a really complicated building. So it's going to be great. We're really excited about it, but yeah, it's obviously higher than we would have liked. But
okay, well that's fair. I mean, I heard Jennifer mention about skateboarding on the floor there, and I don't know what's going on. So all right. Thank you. We have one more public. You want to ask him a question, Mr. C?
Yeah, I do, please. 7 parking places, 5 motorcycles. how do we, I know that it's transit-oriented, all of the above. That doesn't concern you that people are not going to rent your units because they can't park their car?
The other side of this question, so.
What?
Choose care now.
Sorry, what?
So before you answer, I'll take the other side of this question. So.
Okay.
Answer carefully.
Not sure what that means either.
It's hard to say. I mean, yeah, we like to get as much parking in our projects as we can. I think this is a good site for having less parking, being close to the trolley station. But it is only 48 units, and so I think there is going to be we'll be able to find the kind of people who want to live in this type of a project who don't necessarily need or have a car. You know, we had studies with more parking with ramps and things, but the cost is just astronomical. So there's no real easy answer to that, but that's my answer.
So thank you for giving us kind of the perfect example. We're always asking, and it's kind of an unfair question, but how the costs of the affordable projects that we're looking at compare to, for example, market rate or the best data we can get about it. And I think this is a good example of why that's always an imperfect comparison, because, for example, I don't see market rate developers choosing this site or doing this. So, this is a great example of like affordable housing stepping into a situation that the market is not finding interest in or would not find interest in, even if that comes with the higher costs. I mean, that's exactly why a market rate developer would not find this to be an appealing site. Secondly, I, for a very long time now, have been asking the question about why we do not see more affordable housing utilizing parking reductions, given how much of it, I mean, those both state and local laws have been written very intentionally to try to provide cost-lowering options and different configurations of housing, and I see very little utilization of that in affordable housing, which is always a bit disappointing. And the affordable housing developers I talked to about it essentially say, well, we have a different model where we're seeking funds from different sources. So that, yes, it drives our costs up, but as long as we're securing the financing to pay for those higher costs, why wouldn't we just keep doing it? And this is the answer we get at the same time that we're also asking people to please lower their cost per unit. So I think on the public side, we send real mixed messages to affordable housing developers that we would like them to produce more affordable housing at lower costs, and then also, but please don't utilize any of the most efficient tools to do that. I have been to one grand opening of a project that had less than 50% parking ratio. And when I asked Con Am, regionally the largest affordable housing manager, what that lease-up process was like, they said that they filled all of the units that had no parking. The only problem that they had was that they did it via lottery, and so they had a lot of people who qualified and went through the application and then declined it when they didn't get the lottery parking. But they had an excess number of people who did not own cars. And the thing that when I said I'll take the other side of this question, I think we have to keep in mind the number of people in this city who do not own a car, who we directly or indirectly compel to pay the cost of the car by attaching their rent to providing very expensive forms of parking. And when I look around the city, what I see is a shortage of homes for people. I see no shortage of homes for cars. I can look out this window right now, and it's probably 60% vacancy rate on our parking from this view, and our housing vacancy rate we know is not that. So I have no concerns, and to be honest, I would like, this is not to say that any affordable housing resident does not deserve, that they deserve the same standards of housing, but the reality is that cars are extremely expensive. They add to our cost of living in dramatic ways, and we should at least have more options for people who do not have a car to get housing. And again, this site, these homes would not exist I don't think if the traditional one-to-one parking was required here in any form, market rate, affordable, we just wouldn't have housing here. So
Not on this site.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker is Joy Signata. Joy.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the speaker who was willing to talk about the cost per unit. And thank you, Vice Chair, for your comments on the price per unit. I'm not there yet. I'm still mad. We can buy a house and put a house, an individual owned house with a mortgage in every one of those units. We're actually paying more now for an affordable housing unit than we would for a house, I believe. I don't follow the market. I'm not there yet. I'm still mad. I'm still mad at the almost $1 million per unit project that went through City Council, was it last year? I'm not there yet. I'm still mad. Please, somebody clarify this for me. And let's not do it now because we might need to do a one-on-one because I'm mad. So I had to get that out. Thank you so much. So I'll speak on all three of these loan items, but it'll be very quick. So yes, on the loan recommendation for the Grant and Mission Trails project, 47 units, District 7, 7% of the citywide affordable housing units. So that's 7% of the total citywide, and $878,328 per unit. Now, I did the math real quick. As I said earlier, I was curious. I divided 9 districts into the total citywide affordable housing units. I got 3,138 per district. So I thought that was an interesting figure. I don't know what that says, but I wanted to bring that up. So I'll be much shorter on the other 2. And thank you so much for listening. Love to all.
Thank you very much, Joy. All right, that concludes the public comments on this item. If there are any further questions or comments on this item from the commissioners, please state them now. If seeing none. Motion by Vice Chair Klempner, second by Commissioner Vasquez. Seeing no further comments, all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Now, we have 30 minutes left for 2 items, but I need to go backwards. Casey has already left. Commissioner Jackson is back. We need to make sure we did not have a quorum vote for the last item, so we're going to have to redo item 103. I believe on that item we had a motion and a second by Commissioner Vasquez. Were you the motion? Yes, because I think this is the one where Commissioner Cushman abstained. So Commissioner Jackson, I think were you the second or were you the motion?
No, he was.
Oh, he was gone. Okay, so that's right. You were the motion. I think Vice Chair Clinton was the second. All right. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion on item 103 related to the HRC, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And we have 1 abstention with Commissioner Cushman. All right. Now let's move on to the next one. This is item 106, and this item will be next on the loan recommendation for Palm City Transit Villages Phase 1. We'll take public comment after the presentation. And Jennifer and Michelle, you still have the floor. So begin when you're ready.
All right. The item before you today is a request to approve a proposed residual receipt loan in an amount not to exceed $1,670,734 for the construction of Phase 1 of Palm City Transit Village. The first phase of Palm City Transit Village is the proposed new construction of a 79-unit development, which is made up of 78 affordable units and 1 unrestricted manager unit in the Otay Mesa Nestor neighborhood of San Diego. The project is located at 2340 Palm Avenue in Council District 8. The proposed project's 78 affordable units are comprised of studios, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units for individuals and families with income levels ranging from 30 to 60% of the area median income, which equates to $34,750 per year to $99,240 a year for 1 to 4 person households. As the site is located on land owned by MTS, the developer will enter into a 99-year ground lease. Additionally, the project will include a commercial component, specifically a bodega or small grocery store. As noted earlier, this is a phase 1 of a multi-phase project. There will be 4 developments/phases that are anticipated to occur over the next 10 years. These phases will total 501 units for low-income and middle-income individuals and families. The developer of the project is National Core. They are award-winning nonprofit developer and have successfully completed several previous developments utilizing Housing Commission capital funds in the past. With respect to the proposed development, the Housing Commission awarded a preliminary loan of up to $1,670,734 through the fiscal year 2024 Notice of Funding Availability. Services for all tenants will be provided at no cost by National Core's nonprofit affiliate, Hope Through Housing Foundation. These services will include health and wellness classes as well as skill building classes. This slide shows a site map of the development and proximity to transit, schools, and grocery stores. The site is adjacent to the Blue Line Palm Trolley Station. Additionally, MTS bus stops are located at the end of the block, 0.1 miles away. Knowing a bodega will be construction on site, the closest market as of now is 0.8 miles away, while the closest school is 0.7 miles away. The total development cost of the project will be just over $67 million, which equates to a per unit cost of $850,000. The developer is using multiple funding sources, including a permanent loan, a proposed loan from the Housing Commission, and loans from the City of San Diego and SANDAG, funding from the state's IAGC grant, as well as tax credits. The Housing Commission loan in the amount of $1,670,734 accounts for approximately 2.5% of all sources. As mentioned, the per unit cost is $850,000, which can be attributed to the following items. Due to the funding source requirements, clean energy technologies, which includes an all-electric building design and solar, as well as significant on- and off-site infrastructure improvements are all required. Additionally, the developer has committed to a project labor agreement, which increases costs as well as requires the payment of prevailing wages. And lastly, the site will include approximately 2,500 square feet of commercial space, which will be the bodega. These costs associated with the construction of the shell of the space will not be paid for by Housing Commission loan funds. All tenant improvements will be paid at a later date by the tenant themselves. Units were restricted at 30 to 60% of area median income for 55 years. Rental range from $868 to $2,580 per month for the studio through 3-bedroom units. Should these actions be approved today, the developer will apply for 9% tax credits next month. If awarded in September, the developer will close on construction financing and begin construction in December 2025. The project is anticipated to complete construction in September 2027. Here's the architect's rendering of the site. Staff recommends that the board take actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. This concludes the presentation. A representative from the developer and I are available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we have one speaker slip on this item. It is Randy Slarbers. Right there.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Hi again. My name is Randy Slabers. I'm an Assistant VP with Development in the San Diego region for National Core. And first I want to thank Jennifer and Colin and Joe Correa for doing an excellent presentation and a very accurate representation of our project. I'm here to speak on a couple of the high cost factors onto the project. And just as the report mentioned, this is phase 1, and it's going to be a multi-phase project expanding over 8 to 10 years, providing upwards of 500 units of affordable housing and mixed income. We're very excited, and we believe that this first stage is very crucial and lays the essential groundwork for the subsequent phases and its success. I began with National Core about 6 years ago. And this is one of the first ones that hit my desk, and I will say, I said, oh my. I've only done regular, just traditional single projects. So this is an exciting development. Fast forward 6 years. We've been on many calls with MTS and with the Housing Commission and with our developer, and I'm excited to report that we have a master plan that's almost final, and the design for what you're looking for here is going to be submitted to Plan Check next month. We've also we have a great funding stack here that represents local and state financing, but one of the contributing cost increases is we were awarded a portion of the IIC grant, and those funds are about $4.8 million for this project, specifically for phase one. While this does increase our cost per unit, we see this as a very sound and valuable investment for these funds for the broader affordable housing goals. And then another significant cost increase is the ECMA grant. And what that does to the project. I'm very proud to say that we were one of 4 in California that received the grant, and the only one in San Diego in the Inland Empire. So it does add $8 million to the cost of the project. But dollar for dollar, I mean, I've learned a lot about this program, the technology that's involved in the microgrid. And we're kind of like a case study to all the data that's run through our project will be used by the California Energy Commission for future projects. So it's very exciting to see this. Very exciting. And though this $8 million does increase our costs, these are strategic investments to San Diego, I believe, and for our broader housing goals. And with that, I'm grateful for your consideration of our loan.
I know there are 2 lights on, Vice Chair Klumner and then Commissioner Cushman.
Someone's going to have to let me speak here.
My light's off. I think everybody's light's off.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations on making it this far. Okay, so you started 6 years ago, and this project was in the works at that time. How long has this project been in the works?
I think a couple of years before that.
Okay.
Just in terms of its conception and idea.
Got it. And this is MTS. I have a few questions because, as you heard from our public comment, and I have pointed this out before, the most expensive per unit projects that we see tend to be on public land, ironically. I think the prior record on this was it was an MTS site, and Rancho Bernardo was the highest one we'd approved until recently. So I have a few questions related to that because I think that more public agencies, other than just the Housing Commission, play a role in our housing financing and our housing market and our housing policy, and rarely answers many questions about what role they're playing in those. So what is the parking ratio on this site?
There's 0 parking.
There's 0 parking.
That is correct. It's been designed a transit-oriented development with their trolley stop right adjacent to our project.
That is fantastic to hear.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Would this have been feasible if you had been required to provide parking for every unit?
No.
Okay.
No, or it would have taken, like to your point earlier, a lot of additional soft funding.
Okay. Because one of the problems I had with the last MTS project we saw is that they both required full parking for all the units and full replacement of all of the public parking that was based on a multi-decade out-of-date assumption. And so I'm very happy to see, in my view, when our transit agency is working towards providing housing on transit sites, we should be encouraging transit use and looking for ways to utilize that for transit use. Secondly, have you maxed out the density of the site, or are you building below what by zoning you would be allowed?
We have not maxed out the density.
Okay. This is not specific to you. I'm starting to ask this of just everyone because I am noticing that basically nothing gets built to full capacity, and I just like flagging that because when we're zoning, we assume that things are going to get built to full capacity, and it never really happens. So I'm guessing that's due to site constraints?
That's exactly right. And it is a partnership with MTS, and not to go into all the details of the project, but there's parking for them. There's stop they have a bus stop that's going to have a turnaround in front also. So that area
Hey,
obviously could not be.
Have you by
developed.
chance ever had to redesign the site to accommodate their changes?
That has not come up for me.
Okay. Thank you for getting this here today. This is the most exciting MTS project that we've seen come to us. I think if I was to make a list of, not for you necessarily, you're doing exactly what your job is here, but I think if I was to make a list of things that I'm concerned about, the impact that they're having on the great side on this list, the parking is not our cost driver here as it was in Rancho Bernardo. I do kind of have to think that eight years working with a public agency to get a product approved seems like a really long time, and I have to imagine that there was some serious costs involved in that. And so if I'm looking for ways that we can lower the cost of our affordable housing projects, I think this is another example of the timeline, unless you disagree with that. But I think that the timeline is a big challenge, and we need to keep looking for ways to shorten that. So happy to support it today. Thank you.
Commissioner Cushman?
Thank you, sir. Exciting project for sure. I appreciate your estimated cost increase factors table. And I'm trying to understand, you say state prevailing wage, 10.5 million, project labor agreement, 3,669,000. That seems out of balance. Usually a PLA adds 20% or whatever, prevailing wage 10. So I just don't understand the numbers, because prevailing wage is usually not the big increase factor. But if I understand your numbers right, prevailing wage is the big number and the PLA is a small number.
That is correct.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, and I would have to look into that for you, because it's based on
Okay.
the construction and their estimate numbers.
Okay. Yeah, if you can come back to me, I'm going to vote in favor, obviously, but the numbers just don't seem right. If it was flip-flopped, I'd understand.
I will certainly
Thank
work
you.
with Jennifer to get that to you.
All right. Commissioner Vasquez?
Thank you, Chair. The building is 100% electric, which is fabulous. I'm just wondering if that includes any kind of cost-benefit analysis for either the investors or the tenants, so that their lower monthly utilities bill would be lower than what you would expect them to pay if it wasn't 100% electric.
There is, yeah, and that's the great part about working with this EPIC grant program and their team. Approximately 5% they'll be realizing in savings. I don't know over how long of a period, but this is going to be a net zero project, so there'll be substantial savings here.
And my additional concern would be, I love the fact that this isn't going to be built in a food desert because of the 2,500 square foot grocery store or bodega that's going to be attached to the unit. However, I'm still concerned because of oligopolies that the cost for the food would be higher than if there was a closer grocery store nearby. And since this is going to be helping people that already have a low amount of disposable income, if there's going to be any kind of protections from them being exploited by having higher costs to get the food from the bodega.
That is a great concern. And quite frankly, I've not heard that term exploitation on that. We've been working, Malik Infield, who's our development partner, they'll be owning that. So we'll be working closely with them. To be frank, I'm not very versed on any bodega business, and I'm sorry, I just don't have that information readily available.
Okay, a bodega is just a grocery store.
Sure,
and
yeah.
that's
No,
the
this is my
terminology.
first, actually.
It's borrowed from New York, right? So they have bodegas on every corner, which is a liquor store on every corner with grocery stores. So consider it like a 7-Eleven for San Diego.
Sure.
However, what we have experienced is that the food's not the best. There's not organic. But then they have organic prices.
Oh.
All right. So that's what I would be concerned about, is that because of the fact that it's a food, because there's not going to be. It's wonderful that it's not going to be considered a true food desert, meaning that they're not going to be able to get access, or they don't have access, walkability to a grocery store, a competitive grocery store. Whenever this happens, whenever there's an oligopoly and a monopoly, we as consumers know that that means that the seller can raise the prices because of supply and demand. And so because we know we're already dealing with sensitive or tenants that have a low amount of disposable income to pay for food, and that's typically the first thing that we do is I know when I was a college student, I was the skinniest I've ever been because that's where I could narrow my cost, right? Was on how much food I was I was eating on a regular basis. And so that would be my only concern, is that because we are going to be in the Imperial Valley with the bodega, that there would be some kind of protections to make sure that that there wasn't this huge profit for the bodega in obtaining the grocery store simply because of the demand and the lack of competitors in that area. So that would be my only concern.
I thank you for voicing that. So thank you. I'll be taking that back to our team as well.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further comments or questions on you. Thank you very much. We have one more speaker, Joy Signata.
Okay. Yes to the loan recommendation on Palm City Transit. Love the word transit in there. And 78 units. District 8, 17% of the citywide affordable housing units. $850,054 cost per unit. It's high. One little mini question. Commissioner Cushman, thank you for what you ask on this. I'm studying the PLA right now and the SLB and the SLE. There's all kinds of wonderful things to look at there. So I appreciated that, asking for that clarification. One little thing that I had a question on, in the list of the financial resources, it said tax credit investment to be decided. So there's probably no reason to be concerned there, but I was a little concerned about the TBD. Thank you so much. Love to all.
Thank you, Joy. All right, that's the last public comment on that item. Commissioners, any further comments, questions on this item? All right. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion and a second on item 106. We have a motion by Commissioner Jackson. Second by Commissioner Klumpner. And any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries unanimously. And we'll now move to the last item on the agenda, item 107. Jennifer, Michelle, floor is yours.
Good morning, Chair Mitchell and Commissioners. The item before you today is a request to approve a proposed residual receipt loan in an amount not to exceed $4 million for the construction of Swift Avenue Apartments. Swift Avenue Apartments is the proposed new construction of a 57-unit development, which is made up of 56 affordable units and one unrestricted manager's unit, located at 4017 to 4021 Swift Avenue in the City Heights Community Plan area of San Diego in Council District 9. The proposed project's 57 affordable units is comprised of 1- and 2-bedroom units for individuals with income levels ranging from 30% to 60% of the area median income, which equates to $39,700 a year to $89,340 a year. The units will remain affordable for a term of 55 years. The project has been awarded Veteran Affairs Supportive Housing, or VASH, project-based housing vouchers. 20 units will be set aside for VASH-eligible veterans experiencing homelessness. Site amenities include a community room, leasing office, resident services office, on-site laundry, an elevator, and a street-facing courtyard. The developer of the project is Community Housing Works, an experienced award-winning nonprofit developer headquartered in San Diego. Community Housing Works serves more than 14,000 families, owns more than 4,971 apartments in 52 communities statewide, and has successfully completed several developments using Housing Commission capital funds. With respect to the proposed development, the Housing Commission awarded a preliminary residual receipts loan of up to $4 million and 20 VASH project-based vouchers through the fiscal year 24 Notice of Funding Availability. The U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs will provide the 20 voucher households with supportive services including case management. General services for all residents will be provided by Community Housing Works at no cost. This slide shows the site map of the development and the proximity to transit, schools, and grocery stores. A bus stop is located 1/10 of a mile from the site, while the closest grocery store and school are less than 1/2 mile away from the property. The total development cost of the project will be just over $39 million, which equates to a per-unit cost of approximately $685,000. The developer is using a variety of funding sources, including a permanent loan, a proposed loan from the Housing Commission, a city bridge-to-home loan, as well as 9% federal tax credit equity. Units will be restricted at 30 to 60% of area median income for 55 years. Rents will range from $930 to $2,233 per month. Should this be approved today, the developer will apply for 9% tax credits in July. Should they be awarded an allocation in September, they will close on construction financing in March 2026 and start construction in April 2026. The project is anticipated to complete construction in October 2027. Here's the architect's rendering of the site. Staff recommends the board take the following the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. This concludes the presentation. Jennifer and I, as well as representatives from the developer, are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
All right, we have one speaker on this one, Joy. Joy, this is $685,000 a key, so you should be a little happier.
Thank you so much for your help. Okay, Mr. Marshall, if they didn't hear me, if we didn't hear the commission, we couldn't do this meeting. We love you. Thank you. Okay, yes to the loan recommendation on the Swift Avenue Apartments, 56 units, District 9, that's Councilmember Elo Rivera, 12% of the citywide affordable housing units. I'm finding this very interesting. I'm so glad the Housing Commission has that in there. I hope that's going to be an ongoing thing. I think it's good. I'm going to look more at that. So good. And then just finish again with the tax. I think I heard something good about the tax credit thing coming up. But again, I had a little concern about the tax credit investment, TBD, to be determined. Okay, a great meeting. Thank you for listening to me. Love to all.
All right, thank you, Joy. No further public comments or speaker slips on that item. Item 107 is the final item on the agenda. So, commissioners, are there any further comments or questions about the item? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion and a second. Motion by Commissioner Cushman, second by Commissioner Vasquez. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries unanimously, and we have reached the end of the agenda. So that means that it is the end. It's good to see you, Jennifer. You haven't been in the last two meetings you presented. We thought we'd done something wrong, so it's good to see you. I know. This will conclude the board meeting for today, and I will conclude with, again, I thought it was a very good discussion at the very beginning. I'm going to say this every time going forward, that we are stronger together and we have a lot of work to do. So everybody be safe and have a great rest of the week. And that we will conclude today's meeting at 10:57 a.m. Thank you.